when Dan even says the word, I went to school in Moscow, Idaho. I mean, immediately, you know what you think. And I think the exact same thing. I mean, how bizarre that you went to the same university of you probably of the four people that were murdered by well, we're going to find out
Yeah, and it's a
allegedly by
2-year anniversary basically about now, and the trial hasn't even started. But Dan, you went there, you went to school in Moscow. Where did you live? Do you know the house?
yeah. Do you know the house?
Yeah, I do remember that house. What was interesting is I lived in the dorms for the first couple of years, and then I told you I got bad grades, had to go to Spokane, which was 80 miles away. But then I came back to University of Idaho, and I lived on 2 times. I lived in that neighborhood. I lived on Taylor Avenue, which is a main road that kind of comes behind Fraternity Road, Big Field, and it connects to King Road, where that road was. And then another time I lived in apartments behind King Road, which was Queen Road, the Queen Road apartments. And so as soon as the news came out, I mean, it was a weird feeling. It was so kind of such an odd deja vu feeling of just going by that house, on my bike, on a jog, coming home from workouts, things of that nature. It's just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe something that gruesome happened in a little town like Moscow.
It's an interesting town, isn't it? I really followed this through Vanity Fair, or one of the writers that was working for Airmail that we had on the show. And there's some dynamics in that town that make it interesting, right? It's not a major city. The 911 system isn't sophisticated, right? Because it's a
Yep.
little bit remote. Have you been there since? Is there just kind of a creepy, eerie vibe that's in the ozone? Because this is just so horrific, so tragic, so terrible. And do they have the right guy? My opinion, I think they do. Is he going to get convicted? That's another story. But what you must have friends still in the area, and just from living there. What's your thoughts?
So one of the guys I had on my team, he was my attorney at the time. His name's Ron Landeck. He's the local attorney, and so when this happened, I got a chance to jump on the phone with him, and he didn't go into great detail because he's, seeing some behind the scenes things. But I was there last year. A bunch of athletes from the track team, we celebrated, did kind of a reunion for the track coach who's getting a little bit older, but he recruited a lot of Jamaican guys, a lot of Africans and stuff. So we came back into town. People can't stop talking about it. It's eerie. What's eerie about Moscow, Idaho, is it hasn't changed that much in the last 25 years. All right, they haven't. The university hasn't grown. A lot of schools, Boise State and some other big state schools. I mean, they're hungry to get more people into that school, but Idaho's still about the same size it was when I went there, and there hasn't been a lot of growth in population in that area. So when COVID hit, it wasn't like the Moscow, Idaho was not real welcoming to people to come in and move and raise the price of real estate and things like that. So it hasn't changed much. And I think that's what's eerie about it for me. As you drive down that street, those houses look the same. Those fraternities and sororities, all, which are within walking distance, they all look exactly the same as they did when I went to college there.
Right. When you hear the story, like I said, you kind of put yourself right back in that spot in being in college. When you see that, you go, I know that place. I know that street. And you mentioned that your grades were bad. You went to Spokane, drove back. Isn't that where he drove from, supposedly? Kohlberger went from
No, it wasn't.
Spokane to.
I think it was where Washington State is,
Oh, Pullman. Okay.
Oh,
right?
Pullman.
Because that's where he
Which
was
is
going to
closer?
graduate school.
How close is
8
Pullman to?
miles.
Yeah, Pullman's
Eight.
super.
They're 8
Oh,
miles
then,
apart. Yeah.
yeah, then it's okay.
Yeah, and then we're going to be all over this in 2025 because the trial's supposed to start in
Yeah.
June.
Yeah, and Dan, so obviously your connection of winning a gold medal, and everybody knows you, obviously, in Idaho. Do you know, like, the police force? Do you know, like, the inside? If you really wanted to go and play detective, you could make calls, correct? And find out, confidentially, because I imagine everybody knows you.
Everybody does know me, but it's so strange to go back there 25 years later. I mean, everybody that I know is now retired, and there's still a lot of locals there that I am good friends with, and can say hi to them. I'll never forget though. I probably, because of my troubled college days, I probably was in front of 3 or 4 different judges. And those judges would be my connects, but they've all retired. That's how old they were even back then.
We'll take
But
any connections you have, Dan, to
Yeah.
get some insight on this
Yeah, sure.
trial.
Tom has only been in front of a Hawaiian Tropic judge.
I didn't do
Well,
well
you used to
either.
actually been a judge, right?
Yeah, that's my courtroom experience, luckily.